Thank you, everyone, for joining another edition of Odyssey House Journals. I'm Randall Carlisle, your host. Nicole Slack is our co-host. Daniel is our guest today. Before we get to you, Daniel, I don't want to scare you with this, but we got some sort of surprising information on, you can either watch this podcast on YouTube or listen to it on various podcast platforms. And we got some YouTube. We have 6,600 permanent subscribers, which I remember we were just asking for, 4,000 or 5,000 just a couple of months ago. Oh. So we got a lot of new subscribers, but we got a breakdown in states, which surprised me in terms of our viewers. And you would presume, okay, if you're watching, this is Odyssey House of Utah, okay, you would presume that Utah would be the primary place where people are watching, but it's not. So take a guess, another state in the West.
I'll let him go first.
Daniel?
Idaho.
No. It's not even on the top 10 list.
Arizona.
That's not even on the top 10 list.
California.
California.
Okay. I was going for our referral partners, but it turned out it wasn't.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. California is so far ahead. Like the last couple of weeks, we had 742 views in California. 11% of all our viewers are from California. Then comes Florida, Texas, New York, and then Utah.
Maybe it'll be New Jersey now.
And then Illinois, Georgia, Maryland, and Ohio.
Huh.
Isn't that weird?
I honestly, from previous analytics, would have thought Ohio.
Yeah.
But you said West.
Yeah, me too. So anyway, for all those states and all the people who are watching, we thank you very much. Daniel Peterson is our guest today. Welcome. Daniel, we have so many people on, so many guests, people in recovery who started their journey with drugs or alcohol at probably 13 or 14. Mm-hmm. And you are in charge of our adolescent program. So those are the age group you're dealing with.
Right.
If we could get everybody that age to work on themselves at that age, as opposed to waiting till they're in their 30s or 40s, it would be a great benefit to society. What problems do you see with, because teenagers are hard to deal with anyway, right? But a teenager dealing with substance use or mental health issues makes it even worse.
Right.
So
thanks for having me. Thanks for having me on too. And that's a great question. I think primarily, the biggest factor that we see impacting our youth is trauma, untreated trauma, psychological trauma, emotional, verbal, mental, sexual, physical abuse. And untreated trauma is linked with higher rates of substance use in order to self-medicate. And we find our youth have difficulty emotionally regulating, difficulty with mood lability and stability.
Typical of all teenagers.
Yes, typical of all teenagers, right? And then there's at a certain point where it becomes unfunctional and it begins to impact their life. But the trauma history of the kids who come to our program is staggering. You know, it can leave you almost in tears at the end of a workday and what they've been through. And I think there's individualized trauma, there's specific traumas, and then there's also collective trauma where a whole system can fail them, right? So maybe a school system that's not equipped to help them navigate their own issues such as ADHD or something, right? In the classroom, they're told to sit down and be still. And then maybe a street culture where there's more criminal thinking and more inclination to be dishonest or to not hold yourself accountable. And then you have your individual trauma, and all these things combine together and create kind of create a situation where drugs and alcohol seem like a good idea for them. And that's some of the stuff that we're working on to help restore some of their trauma experiences and to help give them the tools to be able to emotionally regulate and handle those things without substances.
When you said a lot of places that are treatment centers advertise trauma-informed care.
Right.
what does that mean? Okay, if I'll just throw out maybe a young teenage girl who was sexually abused. Okay, that's trauma, or maybe physically beaten by her parents or somebody. How do you get some? And so the drugs or the alcohol is to numb the feelings that you have for that, right?
Right.
So how do you get to the root of that?
Yeah. And firstly, we love to say in recovery, like alcohol, drugs, whatever, it wasn't my problem. It was the answer to my problem, right? It was my solution.
Good point.
Until it became the problem. So the question I like to ask, whether it be alcohol, drugs, or self-harm or suicidal thinking or anything, what function is this serving? So for example, let's say a kid is self-harming and they're cutting themselves on their arm. What function does this serve? Does this make you feel better? Does it provide stress relief? Does it make you notice? How is this communicating? So sometimes I'll even have the kids like write letters to their substances or their drugs of choice or their self-harm and say, hey, thank you for being there for me in this way. It turns out this relationship is also toxic, right? And so we help them understand the why without shaming. Trauma-informed care is like a pair of sunglasses. When you're sitting on the sunny beach and you're like, man, it is sunny out here. I need to put these sunglasses on to protect my eyes. It changes the way you see everything. And right, so for example, let's just say the client is 15 and has a sexual abuse history, and we go to do a session. And I walk in, I say, follow me, time for our session, close the door. What do you want to talk about today? All of a sudden she's like, okay, I'm in here with this adult man who hasn't introduced himself. We're in a closed office. So trauma-informed care would be like, hey, normally we meet in my office with the door closed. How is that feeling for you? Does that work for you today? Would you prefer a group room where there's more space? Would you prefer to meet with Jackie, who's a female therapist? Does that what makes you feel most comfortable? Gotcha. And some kids prefer to have a session walking, moving, out in the patio, but always checking in with them and checking in how your language or how your approach is kind of impacting them and what trauma has done that may impact the frame, we call it the therapeutic frame. And so another thing, sometimes I'll be sarcastic. I like to joke, right? So I'll be sarcastic, and I'm from New Jersey, so sometimes the Jersey accent comes on when I care about someone. So like I might do Nicole and I have a rapport, so I might be like, come on, what are you talking about? And I might raise my voice. To me, that I'm joking.
Right.
That's friendly. Right. So I wouldn't do that to our kids right away because all of a sudden they're like, why is Danny yelling at me? Right. And to me, that's a sign of affection. So trauma-informed care would say, hey, can you let them know? Hey, I love to joke around. Does this volume work for you? And kind of bringing them into the solution rather than treating them like they're a number as a client rather than a person.
Does it work?
I think so. One of the things that I love to do is when kids lash out at me, stay calm, consistent, predictable, kind, and compassionate. So a kid can come in the home. So they do
lash out at you.
Absolutely. Every day. There's not a day goes by. And so recently I was yelled at in the hallway, cursed at, I hate you, a lot of emotional dysregulation. What they need from me there is to be consistent, kind, compassionate, but not a pushover. So I can say things like, hey, I'm feeling kind of unsafe right now, the way I'm being spoken to. I might need a little break. And that kind of opens their eyes. But by being kind and consistent, it teaches them that adults won't respond in a negative way and won't lash out at them back.
Yeah. Which is probably something they haven't experienced in the past.
One thing we've noticed is that there's an extreme. They either get permissiveness or they get rigidity. And so we like to find that balance. And so sometimes the youth will come up and they'll ask for an exception over and over and over and over again. And I say, nope, this is our policy. This is our policy, because they're used to wearing their parents down who just give up and say, fine, you can have it. Or on the other hand, they get yelled at or maybe lashed out at in return for asking for that. And so calm, consistent.
I'm thinking back in school, like a principal or an assistant principal, if you lashed out at them, they lashed back doubly.
Can I tell you a fun little anecdote here? So I was wearing some kind of shirt, whatever, a flower shirt.
I hear you wear some kind of weird shirts.
Yeah, I do. Yes. I do. And in front of the whole house, all the staff, all the team, all the kids, a girl said something along the lines of, she goes, I don't like your shirt. I can't trust a man who there was pink in the shirt, a pink shirt or something along those lines. The whole house turned at me. She was looking for a reaction. She was looking for me to, and I said, well, this seems like a you problem. I'm very content. I'm very happy. So if that's a you problem, good luck working that out. And everyone laughed kind of, and she just kind of smirked at me and kind of nodded. And in the hallway later, I just kind of joked. I was like, yeah, you're not going to get me to be upset in the moment, you know. And we actually had a good rapport. But I think in those instances, showing kindness and consistency, and even in that case, using a little humor, I think can really help kind of navigate that.
You've had experience with some of the kids coming into the program. What have you observed?
That I am not good with kids is the first.
Even though you have two of your own.
I can do the paperwork for these youth, yeah, and my two are fantastic. But
Of course, and perfect.
yeah, perfect.
Yes.
They've never done anything wrong. It's wild. But the kiddos, I just kind of do their paper. I try to just be calm and kind all the time, and then I'm like, here you go, Danny, and I leave out the door.
But well, initially when they're coming in, are they scared or angry or what?
It varies. Some of them come in and they're just like resigned to, I have to do this program, and they're not excited, but they're okay, and they'll just answer the questions. Others destroy property. Others scream, cry, and it's a range. You never know what you're going to get, because the kiddos, I meet them on paper first, and then I'll meet them in person, and they can just flip their switch. So they're too unpredictable for me, so I just do paperwork.
I think we should fact check that a little bit. I do think you're good with them. You're probably better than you think you are.
Oh, thanks.
But I think the big thing that we try to do is like not power struggle. So for example, think about a safety ladder. And if a kid is upset, if they're sitting there calmly, then they're not hurting anybody. That's a great start. So they can say, I hate your program, blankety blank, you're a jerk, you're a blankety blank. They're not hurting anybody. So my ego needs to get set aside and say, they're not mad at me. They just met me 10 seconds ago.
Right.
They're sitting there calmly. Let's let them be for a minute, right? And I think what happens is some adults are used to being like, no, that's not how we do this. You're going to listen to me. This is my way.
And don't use that word.
Yes. And so so when they're saying that, I'll say, okay, thanks for sharing. And I'll walk away for a minute and give them some space. And then 10 minutes later, check back in. And so I've had kids be like, well, I'm not doing this stupid program, but I will sit here safely. And then what you do is you affirm and you reinforce positively. Hey, it really means a lot to me that you're sitting there safely. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That makes this a lot easier. I'm going to give you a few more minutes break. Let's see if you need something to eat. Well, I'm not staying in this stupid program, but like I am hungry. Great, let's get you a sandwich. And you slowly build a rapport rather than, no one talks to me like that. You know, that attitude is not helpful. The whole like my way or the highway attitude is not
Doesn't
helpful.
work.
No.
No.
Yeah. I mean, I've had kids say, please, get the blank out of my room. And I say, okay, I'll come back later. Like, I'm not going to like insist that they listen.
Yeah, though we had a kid just screaming at us. And he was like, I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at my mom.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I totally get that. But I'm not yelling. Can you just not yell with me for just a second so we can just do this? And then when we're done, maybe you can go, punch the bag. You can go do what you need to do. But I'm not yelling at you. Can you not yell at me? And he's just like, okay. Yeah. Just talking to them,
Right.
but they're such good kids. You see them a week later and they're doing so great. And their reaction is that they have no control over the situation. And I'm the person usually delivering the news with the family, and then you get the aftermath. But they're really mad.
Take it away, Daniel.
It doesn't matter almost what they're saying as long as it's not threatening when they're mad and they're cursing. And I'm just like, thanks for sitting here and doing it consents with me. You were great. Do you want a stress ball?
Yeah.
Just give them a toy.
Yeah.
But they're great. You handle them so well.
Thank you.
I love watching
Yeah,
it.
you said it very, very
thank you.
wise.
Thank you.
It's wild. Just his calm all the time. I'm like,
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. One of my early mentors had some really good guidance for me. One of my early mentors had suggested, do your own work around your ego, around what you need outside of your work environment.
yeah.
Do not have this is huge for listeners. Do not have your clients meet your emotional needs for you. You are a professional. You're there to provide for their emotional needs. If you are insecure and upset, you get your needs met elsewhere through your therapist, through your loved ones, through your community. And so that way, he was saying the caregivers I've seen that always get caught up is when they're looking for their satisfaction from their clients to fill their needs. And I thought that was a really cool insight.
For every job.
Yeah.
First
Yeah,
day.
if you think about it.
Yep.
I love that.
Yeah,
Let's
that was helpful.
dispel a couple of myths about youth therapy programs that get a lot of publicity.
Yeah.
And you just tell me how you handle it. That you drug a kid when they're violent.
Yeah, that's a myth. There are
programs that do.
Yeah, and there's a lot of laws and regulations around that. But when kids are violent, we don't. If their med providers have a med that they're allowed to take, they are given the option of taking that. For example, if it's prescribed to them,
Right.
to say, hey, you do have a med to help calm you down. I know our providers go I'm not a med provider myself, but they go very mellow at first, and they go very the minimum dosage of things. And we give them the option. We do not force meds, and we do not what they would call like snow clients, because that's when you give them like an excessive amount. That doesn't help them. And because we're substance use, we don't want to treat them we don't want to teach them that an outside substance is the solution to this problem.
What about restraint?
Restraint, in my time there, we've never had to put a kid in a restraint. Sometimes that does happen.
But if you do, you don't. You have some kind of wraparound process.
Yeah, so there is a whole process. We're trained on how to do like minimal restraint. So, for example, there was one situation where a client picked up the fire extinguisher and went to throw it at the manager's head. I was able to come around. If you're watching, you can see me because she kind of lodged it like this. And I was able to come back and just snatch it from her without restraining. And then she was calm, right? So we do the least possible intervention, the least possible.
Sexual abuse, that comes up frequently.
Yeah, and so there is a very thorough reporting system. There's a lot of accountability around that. Anything that we hear or see, we report to the Department of Health and Human Services and DCFS immediately. And except for their bedrooms and the bathrooms, everything is on camera. And so anytime if a kid ever says anything, hey, I'm uncomfortable, immediately there's an investigation, and we bring in outside sources. The biggest thing for accountability is having outside sources help because of our own biases, right? If someone says to me, oh, this person, I might say, oh, it's hard for me to be objective if I work there. So that's why whenever there's an allegation, we bring in outside people to help with that.
Okay. Yeah. And so I hate when we have the publicity over some of the treatment centers where there's some of these abuses occurring, and then to be lumped together as an adolescent treatment facility. They are different.
Yeah.
We have different rules.
Yes.
They are, would you call it a lockdown facility?
It's what's called intermediate secure. So it is a lockdown facility. It's not at the level of like detention. For example, so the doors are locked. They can't leave.
The outside doors.
The outside doors are locked, right? We do have kids who are able to get through. They bunch a window, they jump over the fence, right? So it's not quite like a detention center, but it's what's called intermediate secure. And they have line of sight at all times, except when they're in the bathroom and sleeping, and those types of things. So they get line of sight was every 10 minutes.
And it's not like
every 15.
And it's not like kids come in there and then the parents are pushed out of the process or anything. What do you
That's a big myth, if I can dispel that one. Parents, I think maybe historically this has been the case. I don't know historically, but parents have a lot of anxiety of, if I bring my kid here, am I losing custody? Am I relinquishing my rights? And let me be very clear, that is not the case. They have parental rights to come in and terminate treatment whenever they feel.
But also involve them in the treatment process.
Oh yeah, they're there multiple. So they have family therapy every week, and then family visits every week. And so parents are kept updated on everything in their treatment plan. And so if the kid is having a rough time and maybe they're being a little aggressive, parents will be notified. And they also will be there every week for family therapy. And some of our families are from out of state, so there's virtual options for that as well.
And it's because the kid's going to go back with the family.
Right.
And so if one of the triggers for the kid is the family, then you guys have to deal with it.
Yes. Right? And we try to, so in clinical work, there's the individual and then there's the system. And so we try to treat both. And so in the case of family therapy, if the system is malfunctioning to the point where the kid's going to go back and then maybe relapse right away, we also try to help navigate that system. And sometimes that's hard because the system is not just a family, it's the whole household, it's the town, it's the school, everything, right? And so we do the best that we can to kind of work with those parts of it too. And so some of our juvenile justice kiddos, They do really well when we keep the parents involved, the PO involved, the judge, and we will go to court with them. I've advocated myself for some of our clients with the judge and say, hey, they've done great. They've really engaged in the program. And so we kind of work with the whole system as well.
There's a lot of love. I've been through the program for a number of years, and there's a lot of love that goes on there. And I'm not trying to push it, but in case you have a situation, it is the Odyssey House of Utah adolescent program.
Yeah.
If you'd be interested, you just have to look. You can go to odysseyhouse.org and look up the youth program. I couldn't. One of the best videos we did. Obviously, we have to keep clients confidential unless their parents sign a waiver or they happen to turn 18. And we covered a graduation, a double graduation. It was several years ago of two kids from Vegas who had turned 18. Yeah. And it was one of the most emotional things we've ever covered because all the kids, they get to know each other pretty well and either love them or hate them, I guess.
Right.
But they become a family. And it was a tearful goodbye.
Yeah.
Are all your graduations like that? Or?
The majority of the graduations are really emotional. Because it becomes a family. When I first started working there, everyone's like, oh, Odyssey family. And I was like, all right, I feel like that's maybe overused. It's true. I mean, we have a lot of kids who are like, I can't wait to go home. And then they call and they're like, we actually miss everyone. Living in a community like that where you're being emotionally vulnerable and you're working on all your stuff, you naturally become really close and intimate with one another on that journey of recovery. Because it's scary. Recovery is scary. It's hard work, Some of the things we ask the kids to do are hard work,
Especially for teenagers. I remember going through I went through an IOP program twice, and I remember when it was time to leave, it was like, God, it's sad because you are part of the family because you've spilled your guts to them more than you do anybody else in your life because that's what a program is about.
Yes.
And for some of these kiddos, just from reading their documentation that comes in, they finally feel safe.
Yeah.
And with you guys being so consistent and kind, and even if you're not telling them yes all the time, at least they're safe. And you can get that vibe from them that they're like, yeah, we're just, even at the Odyssey days the other day, they're like, yeah, and then we're going to go home. I was like, oh, they mean the house, the facility.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. Yeah, a lot of people come in with this nightmare idea, oh my gosh, I'm stuck here. And then they actually end up liking it more than their home and their friends. They're like, people actually care. And one thing I tell new staff and new team, this is really important, is that boundaries is a way to love someone. Boundaries is a way to love someone, right? By showing them professional boundaries, it is a way to actually care about them. If you blur the boundaries, then it teaches them that blurring boundaries is okay, and it kind of treats them disrespectfully, So sometimes they'll want to know gossip or something like that. Oh, was this person fired or what happened? And I just respectfully say, hey, it's not really relevant for your treatment, and let's not get into that. And I always respect their physical space. Sometimes kids will, can we do hugs? And I'll just say, hey, just to make sure everyone's safe, I'm not going to give a hug, but we can do a virtual remote hug or a high five. I just really want to respect your space. And a lot of people have dealt with trauma, and so hugging people can get confusion. Sure. And they always were like, "Oh, that makes sense." You don't do it in a cold way or "Oh, no, I can't hug you." Yeah, you just say,
"Stay away."
Hey, I just really want to respect your work and your boundaries. And so,
are you in recovery?
I am. I'm 14 years sober. Last week, actually.
Wow.
And I'm in recovery. Thank you.
Yeah, I was 14 years in July.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're the same. Yeah. In August. August 8th.
What were your issues? Mine is July 24th. I picked that because. For those of you outside the state, that's Pioneer Day for Mormons in Utah. And I always figured that was a good day that I could remember that I stopped drinking on a day when,
That's awesome.
What were your issues?
Yeah, so I came into the AA is my main fellowship, alcoholism, and then some other things kind of along with that. AA I have found to be the fellowship to kind of where that works best for me. I have kind of a unique background. I have a really supportive, loving family. Just discovered in a very heteronormative society, I discovered I was gay at a young age and found that drugs and alcohol was a really convenient way to be like, oh, I don't have to deal with this. Let me just take all these. And so that's been a long journey. And, I feel like the recovery world is where I can give back and truly be myself. my faith is really important to me. There's been a whole journey with that, reconciling that. That's a whole nother podcast if you ever want to do that.
Yeah.
And so like it just feels like a really great environment where I can kind of give back and be myself. And after I left some of my more church involvement back, again, that's a whole nother story. The mental health field is where I really found a lot of that same community, belief, morality, and all those things. So it's been kind of a cool journey to navigate that and work through the emotional regulation, the same thing that we're teaching the kids, and integrity and boundaries and all these things.
We all work on those
we
things,
do.
don't we?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
So did you grow up, you said New Jersey.
I grew up in New Jersey, yeah.
Did you know The Sopranos or anything?
I worked in a town that was the one town over
Really?
from where it was filmed. Yeah. So let me correct that. I grew up in Virginia. I apologize. My family's from New Jersey, and we were there all the time as kids growing up on the weekends and on holidays. And when I finished college, I moved back to New Jersey. So I consider myself from New Jersey, even though I spent my childhood years in Virginia. But yes, The Sopranos were next town over, and I just was visiting for the weekend, and I had some of the most delicious Italian food that I've had.
Yes.
You know.
Bada Bing?
Yes.
Is that a strip joint that exists?
I'm not sure about that one. Is it? I don't know.
That was a strip joint that they went to.
Oh yeah, in Bloomfield, yeah, or Belleville, yeah.
What brought you to Utah?
So I was ready for a change, and because I was sober at the time, I was like, I want to change. I love to ski in the mountains, so that was my main thing. But I was like, let me also find a city that there's going to be resources, there's going to be sobriety, and maybe that's not like a total party city. Because I was like, let me just be safe, and I felt like Salt Lake City had all those things and a good job market and healthcare and continuing
How
education.
old were you when you came out here?
It was just like 4 years ago.
No way.
Yeah. And so I left my community there. That was really hard because I love my family. I'm really close with them.
Right.
And I just kind of randomly picked it. I was like, it just feels like the right thing. And I started off working in Intermountain Health at Primary Children's, which I love Primary Children's.
Yeah.
Really cool experience. But I had been wanting to get into the recovery world for a while. And I saw the open position as a therapist on the FAC team. And I was like, that's really awesome. And I joined them for a while and really liked my experience there. But when this position came through the email, I remember thinking like working with youth is my passion. I was like, oh, that's a really cool opportunity. So.
Well, and even though you're supposed to drop your ego, it must
Yeah.
feel good to know that, because no program is 100% successful,
Yeah.
but it must feel good to know that you've helped some young people, change their lives for their future.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of interesting. I've been reflecting on this because we talk about people who are like narcissistic or selfish. I actually think that always comes from a weak sense of self and a weak ego. It's insecurity that makes you want the attention of others, right? And so I think when we have healthy ego, then we can be of service. The fact that I feel good about what I do, the fact that I love myself, and I've done the interior work to be like, I actually feel really positive about who I am. Now I can let my ego go and work and kind of work and serve others because I feel good about myself. In fact, for our clients recently came up, she goes, I don't understand. Why are you so happy every day? And I said, to be honest with you, I've done a lot of work and it's hard work, but I really am content, and it's a genuine contentedness. I said, thank you for noticing that. She's like, you just are so happy every day. And I was like, I think it's genuine, but it's hard work. And I think kind of doing that service helps keep the focus that way.
You do a great job. You do great work.
Thank you.
And it's been very impressive to hear about how you run the program.
Thank you.
If I had a choice I'd like you to be my dad if I had to start over again.
Thank you. Thank you. I apprate it.
Yeah, Daniel, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And the team. I want to give a shout out to the team as we end here. I love working with the team. Everyone's so dedicated. There's been people there have been there for a while and really have given, and we have some new people, and it's really cool to see the team like work together because everyone brings different strengths. And just to create like a great environment for the kids. And we're growing as a team too. We make mistakes, and we're like, oh, we learned from that one, and so, yeah, that's really good too.
Daniel Peterson was our guest today. Nicole, good to see you again.
Thank you as well.
And you're a good mom. And you're good with these kids too. So, okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks both of you.
Thank you.
And thank you, California, for being our #1 state.
Hopefully New Jersey now.
I know.
Yeah,
Come on, Jersey. You got
Jersey. Yeah. Thanks for watching and listening to another edition of Odyssey House Journals.